Park Do-hyun stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Federation Academy. His uniform was clean. His boots were polished. His face showed nothing. But inside, his heart was beating fast. In front of him sat 5 admirals. Their faces were hard and cold. They looked at him like he was a problem they needed to fix. Admiral Kwon Sun-hee spoke first. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Cadet Park, you changed the code in a training mech. You broke 17 regulations. You used military property for personal gain. Do-hyun kept his eyes forward. I won the simulation, Admiral. The simulation was designed to be impossible to win. Then perhaps the design was wrong. A few of the admirals shifted in their seats. One of them almost smiled. But Admiral Kwon did not smile. She looked at a screen in front of her. You are 22 years old. You'd come from a small town on Earth. Your scores are excellent. Your instructors say you are brilliant. She looked up. They also say you are a problem. You do not follow rules. You think you know better than everyone else. Do-hyun said nothing. She was not wrong. We are not going to expel you, Admiral Kwon said. That would be too easy. Instead, you will learn what it means to be alone. You will learn what it means to have nothing but yourself. She pressed a button. A hologram appeared in the air. It showed a gray planet covered in dust and dead stone. Kepler-442b, she said. 300 years ago, this world had forests and oceans. Then the ecosystem collapsed. Now it is dead. Nothing lives there. Nothing grows there. Do-hyun looked at the gray world. His stomach felt cold. You will spend 6 months on this planet, alone. You will have basic supplies and a small shelter. Your communicator will work once per month for check-ins. Admiral Kwon leaned forward. Perhaps when you return, you will understand that rules exist for a reason. The other cadets watched as Do-hyun walked out of the hall. Some of them looked sad for him. Some of them looked happy. Do-hyun did not look at any of them. He went to his room and packed his bag. He did not have many things. Some clothes. Some tools. A photograph of his mother, who died when he was young. And then there was Bori. Bori was sleeping in a box under Do-hyun's bed. He was a void eel, a creature with a long body like a snake, but with 6 small fins that worked like legs. His scales were black and purple, and they glowed softly in the dark. He was about the size of a large cat. Void eels were supposed to be extinct. But Do-hyun had found Bori 3 months ago at an illegal market on a space station. The creature had been sick and scared, locked in a small cage. Do-hyun had stolen him and nursed him back to health. Now Bori went everywhere with Do-hyun. He could not leave him behind. Come on, little one, Do-hyun said softly. He picked up the eel and put him inside his jacket. Bori made a small sound and curled against his chest. We are going on a trip. The shuttle ride to Kepler-442b took 3 days. Do-hyun sat alone in the cargo hold, watching the stars pass by. Bori slept in his lap, his scales pulsing with soft light. When the shuttle landed, Do-hyun stepped out onto gray dust. The sky was yellow and brown. The wind was cold and carried bits of rock. In every direction, he saw nothing but dead land. Old trees had turned to stone. Mountains stood in the distance like the bones of giants. A small shelter pod sat on the ground nearby. It was gray and simple, just a place to sleep and store supplies. Next to it was a box of food packets, water tablets, and basic tools. The shuttle pilot looked at Do-hyun from the door. Good luck, Cadet. Try not to go crazy. The shuttle flew away. Do-hyun watched it until it became a small dot in the sky. Then he was alone. He spent the first day setting up his shelter. He checked his supplies. He had enough food for 6 months if he was careful. Water was a bigger problem. He had tablets that could pull moisture from the air. but the air here was very dry. Bori stayed close to him. The eel did not like this place. His scales flickered nervously, and he kept looking at the ground. "What is it?" Do-hyun asked. Bori made a strange sound. Then he did something that surprised Do-hyun. He phased through the ground. One moment he was there, and the next moment he sank into the dust like it was water. This was the void eel's special ability. They could move through solid things for short distances. It was how they hunted in the wild. Do-hyun waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Then Bori came back up through the ground. His scales were wet. Do-hyun stared. "Wet? How are you wet?" He touched Bori's scales. The water was cold and clean. It was real water. Do-hyun looked at the dead ground beneath his feet. His heart began to beat faster. The admirals had said this planet was dead. Nothing lived here. Nothing could survive. But there was water under the ground. And where there was water, there might be life. Do-hyun smiled for the first time since his trial. He looked at Bori and scratched the eel behind his small ears. "Good boy," he said. "Very good boy." He did not know what was down there. He did not know how deep it went or what he would find. But he knew one thing for certain. He was going to find out. It took Do-hyun 3 days to find the way down. He followed Bori across the gray wasteland, watching the eel phase in and out of the ground. Each time Bori came back up, his scales were wetter. They were getting closer. On the 3rd day, they found a crack in the earth. It was hidden between 2 stone trees, so narrow that Do-hyun almost walked past it. But Bori stopped and made an excited sound. Do-hyun looked into the crack. It went down into darkness. Cold air came up from below. Carrying the smell of water. He went back to his shelter and gathered supplies. Rope, a light, food for 3 days. He tied Bori to his chest with a piece of cloth so the eel would not fall. Then he began to climb down. The crack became a tunnel. The tunnel became a cavern. Do-hyun climbed for hours, using his rope and his hands. His arms grew tired. His fingers began to bleed. But he did not stop. Finally, after what felt like forever, the tunnel opened up into something vast. Do-hyun stepped out onto a ledge and stopped. Breathing. Below him was an ocean. It stretched out in every direction, farther than he could see. The water was black and still, but it was not dark. Soft lights floated through the water, blue and green and purple. They were living things. Small creatures with glowing bodies, drifting like stars in a night sky. The cavern ceiling was high above, covered with crystals that reflected the light from below. It looked like a second sky made of diamonds. "Beautiful," Do-hyun whispered. Bori wiggled free from the cloth and dove into the water. He swam in circles, his scales glowing brighter than ever. He was happy. This was his natural home, dark water filled with life. Do-hyun found a path down to the shore. The beach was made of smooth black stones. He sat down and put his feet in the water. It was cold but clean. The admirals had been wrong. This planet was not dead. It had just gone underground. For the next week, Do-hyun explored the underground ocean. He found that it went on for miles and miles. There were rivers that flowed into it. There were caves and tunnels leading to other chambers. And everywhere, there was life. Strange fish swam in the dark water. They had no eyes because they did not need them. Their skin was clear, and Do-hyun could see their hearts beating inside their bodies. There were also things like crabs, but with too many legs, and plants that grew on the rocks, glowing softly. But Do-hyun had a problem. His food would not last forever. He needed to find a way to eat what lived down here. He decided to try fishing. Back on Earth, Do-hyun's grandfather had taught him to fish. They would sit by the river near their village for hours, waiting for the fish to bite. His grandfather was a patient man. Do-hyun was not. But he had learned that. Now he needed to remember those lessons. He did not have a fishing rod. So he made one. He used a piece of metal from his emergency kit as a hook. He used wire from his shuttle's broken communicator as a line. He found a long piece of stone that had once been a tree branch and used it as a pole dot. It was not a good fishing rod. But it was a fishing rod. Do-hyun sat on the shore with his rod in the water. Bori swam nearby, watching with curious eyes. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Do-hyun began to feel frustrated. Maybe the fish here are too smart, he said to Bori. But then he had an idea. Back home, fishermen sometimes use nets to catch many fish at once. But Do-hyun did not have a net. He did have Bori. Come here, Do-hyun said. He pointed at a group of fish swimming near some rocks. Can you push them toward me? Bori tilted his head. Then he dove under the water. A moment later, the fish began to swim in Do-hyun's direction. Bori was behind them, herding them like a dog herds sheep. The fish were scared and confused. They swam right toward Do-hyun's hook dot. He caught 3 fish in 1 hour. Do-hyun laughed out loud. His voice echoed across the dark water. Bori came up from the water and made a happy sound. Good boy, Do-hyun said. We make a good team. He built a small fire using dried plants that grew on the rocks. He cleaned one of the fish carefully. He had a small kit that could test if food was safe to eat. The results came back positive. The fish was not poisonous. Do-hyun cooked it over the fire and took a small bite. It tasted strange. Not like fish from Earth. It was soft and a little sweet. But it was good. It was food. He ate the whole thing. That night, Do-hyun lay on the black stone beach with Bori curled up next to him. The lights from the water danced on the cavern ceiling. The sound of the underground ocean was soft and peaceful. He thought about the admirals who had sent him here. They wanted him to suffer. They wanted him to be alone and afraid. But Do-hyun was not suffering. He was not afraid. He had water. He had food. He had Bori. And he had a whole new world to explore. For the first time in his life, Do-hyun felt truly free. He closed his eyes and smiled. Tomorrow, he would fish again. He would explore more caves. He would map this underground kingdom. He was supposed to be on a dead planet. Instead, he had found a home. 2 months passed. Do-hyun had made the underground cavern his home. He built a small shelter from stones near the shore. He had learned which fish were best to eat and which plants could be used for medicine. He had mapped the nearby caves and given names to the creatures he found. Bori had grown bigger. The underground ocean was good for him. He swam faster now and could catch fish on his own. At night, he would curl around Do-hyun like a warm blanket, his scales glowing softly. Life was simple. Life was good. But one night, something changed. Do-hyun was fishing on a part of the shore he had never visited before. It was far from his shelter, almost a full day of walking. Bori swam beside him, pushing fish toward his line. Then Do-hyun's communicator made a strange sound. He looked at the small device on his wrist. It was only supposed to work once a month for check-ins with the Federation. But now it was picking up something else. A signal. Beep. Beep, beep. It was faint and weak. But it was there. And it was coming from deeper in the caves. Do-hyun put down his fishing rod. He looked at Bori. Do you hear that, little one? Bori's scales flickered. He was nervous. Do-hyun was nervous too. But he was also curious. A signal meant technology. Technology meant someone had been here before. He packed his supplies and followed the signal. The caves became narrower. The path became harder. Do-hyun had to climb over rocks and squeeze through tight spaces. Bori helped by phasing ahead and coming back to show him the way. After many hours, they reached a large chamber. Dohyun stopped and stared. In the center of the chamber was a structure. It was made of dark metal and smooth stone. It looked like a building, but not like any building Dohyun had ever seen. The design was strange and alien. Old symbols covered the walls. This was not human technology. Dohyun's heart beat faster. He walked toward the structure slowly. Bori stayed close to his leg, scales flickering with fear. The entrance was a tall doorway with no door. Dohyun walked inside. The room was filled with pods. Hundreds of them. They were long and shaped like eggs, made of dark glass. Each pod had lights on the side, blinking slowly. Dohyun walked to the nearest pod and wiped the dust from the glass. He jumped back with a gasp. There was a person inside, not a human person. This being was taller and thinner than any human. The arms and legs were too long. The skin was pale blue. Crystals grew from the shoulders and the top of the head, glowing softly. But the face was almost human. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, peaceful, like someone sleeping. Dohyun looked around the room. Every pod held one of these beings. They were all sleeping. Who are you? He whispered. He walked deeper into the room, looking at each pod. Some of the beings were large. Some were small, maybe children. All of them were still and silent. Then he noticed something wrong. Many of the pods were dark. Their lights were not blinking. When Dohyun wiped the glass of these pods, he saw that the beings inside were not sleeping. They were dead. Their skin was gray, and their crystals had lost their glow. The pods were failing. These people were dying in their sleep. Dohyun felt his chest grow tight. He did not know these beings. He did not know their names or their language. But he could not watch them die. He looked for something, a control panel, a computer, anything. He found it at the back of the room. A large machine covered in the same strange symbols. It was making a sad, low sound, like it was tired. Dohyun could not read the symbols, but he could see that some parts of the machine were broken. Wires were loose. Crystals were cracked. He was not an engineer. He did not know how to fix alien technology, but he had to try. He spent hours working on the machine. He reconnected wires. He cleaned dust from the circuits. He did not know if he was helping or making things worse. Then his hand touched the wrong thing. A loud sound filled the room. Lights began to flash. Dohyun stepped back in fear. One of the pods began to open. Steam came out of the pod. Dohyun watched, frozen, as the glass lid rose slowly. Inside, the being began to move. Eyes opened large and silver, like mirrors. The being sat up and looked at Dohyun. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Human and alien. Two creatures who had never seen anything like each other. The alien was afraid. Dohyun could see it in her eyes. She was shaking. She looked around the room at the other pods, at the dead ones, at the failing lights. Her mouth opened, and she made sounds, but Dohyun could not understand them. Slowly, carefully, Dohyun raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "It is okay," he said softly. "I am not going to hurt you." The alien did not understand his words, but she understood his voice. It was gentle, kind. She stopped shaking. Dohyun reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of cooked fish. He held it out to her. "Are you hungry?" he asked. The alien looked at the food. She sniffed it carefully. Then, slowly, she took it and ate. Dohyun smiled. "My name is Dohyun," he said, pointing to himself. The alien pointed to herself and made a sound. Dohyun could not say her real name. It was too strange for his mouth. So he gave her a new name. "Yuna," he said. "I will call you Yuna." Yuna looked at him with her silver eyes. She did not understand everything, but she understood enough that she was not alone anymore. Neither was he. The weeks that followed were hard. Yuna was weak from her long sleep. She could barely walk at first. Do-hyun helped her move around, letting her lean on his shoulder. Bori watched over her too, curling up at her feet while she rested. Little by little, Yuna grew stronger. And little by little, they learned to talk to each other. Do-hyun would point at things and say their names. Water, fish, rock, fire. Yuna would repeat the words slowly, her voice soft and musical. Then she would teach him her words. He could not say them perfectly, but he tried. He learned that her people were called the Valorans. They had lived on this planet long ago, when it was green and full of life. Then something terrible happened. The sun grew too hot. The land above began to die. The Valorans had built this underground place to survive. They put themselves in the sleeping pods, hoping to wait until the world healed. A machine was supposed to wake them when it was safe, but the machine broke. And they slept for 3,000 years. Do-hyun felt sad when he understood this. These people had tried so hard to survive. They had waited so long. And now many of them were dying in their sleep because of a broken machine. He decided he would not let that happen. Every day, Do-hyun worked on the machine. He was not a scientist or an engineer. He was just a cadet who had gotten in trouble too many times. But he was smart. He was creative. And he did not give up. He studied the machine carefully. He compared it to human technology. Some things were similar. Wires were wires. Power was power. Other things were completely different. The Valorans used crystals instead of computers. Their energy came from the heat of the planet itself. Slowly, Do-hyun began to understand. He used parts from his own equipment to fix what was broken. He took wires from his communicator. He took metal from his shelter. He even took pieces from the shuttle that had brought him here. It was not perfect. Human technology and Valoran technology did not fit together well. But Do-hyun made it work. While he worked on the machine, he also taught Yuna how to survive. "This is how you fish," he said, showing her how to hold the rod. "You must be patient. Wait for the fish to come to you." Yuna tried. She was not patient. She became frustrated when the fish did not bite quickly. But she kept trying, and soon she caught her first fish. She held it up with a big smile. The crystals on her head glowed brightly. "Good," Do-hyun said. "Very good." He taught her how to cook the fish over a fire. He taught her which plants were safe to eat. He taught her how to find clean water. Yuna learned quickly. She was smart, like all her people. And she taught Do-hyun things too. She showed him secret paths through the caves. She showed him how to read the Valoran symbols. She showed him how to make the crystals glow brighter. 1 month later, they woke up more Valorans. Do-hyun had fixed enough of the machine to open a few more pods safely. He and Yuna chose carefully, picking the pods that were failing the fastest. The first group was 10 Valorans. They were scared and confused, just like Yuna had been. But Yuna was there to help them. She spoke to them in their own language. She explained what had happened. She introduced them to Do-hyun and Dot. The Valorans looked at Do-hyun with wonder. They had never seen a human before. He was shorter than them, with strange flat skin and no crystals. But he had saved their lives. One by one, they bowed to him. Do-hyun felt embarrassed. "You do not need to bow," he said. "I am just doing what anyone would do." But Yuna shook her head. "No," she said in her careful Korean. "Not anyone. You. Only you." The underground settlement began to grow. Do-hyun taught the Valorans everything he knew. How to fish. How to make fire. How to build shelters. The Valorans taught the humans things too, even though Do-hyun was the only human there. They shared their knowledge of the caves, the water, and the creatures that lived in the darkness. Soon, there were fishing boats on the underground ocean. The Valorans made them from stone and crystal. using old designs they remembered from before their long sleep. Do-hyun helped them with the fishing nets. Bori became everyone's friend. The Valorans had never seen a void eel before. They called him a shadow swimmer. The children loved to watch him phase through rocks and swim through the air. Then, one day, Do-hyun's communicator beeped out it was time for his monthly check-in with the Federation. He sat by the underground shore, looking at the small device in his hand. He had a choice to make. If he told the Federation about the Valorans, everything would change. Ships would come. Scientists would come. Soldiers might come. The Valorans would be studied and questioned. Their home would no longer be their own. But if he stayed silent, he would be lying to his commanders. He would be breaking more rules. He could be punished even more harshly. Yuna sat beside him. She had learned a lot of Korean now. "What will you do?" she asked. Do-hyun looked at the settlement. The Valorans were fishing on the dark water. Children were playing on the shore. For the first time in 3,000 years, these people were living again. He pressed the button on his communicator. "This is Cadet Park Do-hyun," he said. "Monthly check-in. Everything is fine. I found some underground water. Food is good. Health is good. Nothing else to report." He turned off the communicator. Yuna looked at him. "You did not tell them about us." "No," Do-hyun said. "Not yet. When you are ready, when you are strong, then you can tell them yourselves." Yuna's silver eyes filled with something that looked like tears. "Thank you," she said quietly. Do-hyun smiled and picked up his fishing rod. "Come on," he said. "The fish are waiting." They sat together by the water, human and Valoran, fishing in the glow of an underground sea. The dead planet was coming back to life, and it was only the beginning. 6 months passed quickly. The underground settlement had grown into a small city. More than 200 Valorans were now awake. They had built homes from stone and crystal along the shore of the dark ocean. Fishing boats floated on the glowing water. Children played in the caves, their laughter echoing off the walls. And in the middle of it all was Do-hyun, the human who had found them, the human who had saved them, the human who had taught them to live again. But now his time was ending. A message came through his communicator. "Cadet Park Do-hyun, your punishment period is complete. A shuttle will arrive in 3 days to bring you home." Do-hyun read the message and felt his heart sink. He had known this day would come, but he was not ready. Yuna found him sitting alone by the water. Bori was curled in his lap, sleeping peacefully. "The Federation is coming," Do-hyun said quietly. Yuna sat beside him. Her Korean was very good now. She spoke almost like a native. "What will happen? They will take me back, and they will find you." Do-hyun looked at the settlement, at the lights, at the people. "Everything will change." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Perhaps change is not always bad." 3 days later, the shuttle landed on the gray surface above. Do-hyun climbed up through the tunnels with Yuna and 10 other Valorans. It had been 6 months since he had seen the sky. It was still gray and dead up here, but somehow it did not feel as empty as before. The shuttle door opened. Admiral Kwon Sun-hee stepped out. She was older than Do-hyun remembered. Her gray hair was shorter now, but her eyes were still sharp and hard. She looked at Do-hyun, then at Yuna, then at the other Valorans. Her mouth fell open. "What?" she said slowly. "Is this?" Do-hyun stood straight. "Admiral, this planet is not dead. There is an underground ocean with a complete ecosystem, and there are people living there. The Valorans. They have been sleeping for 3,000 years. Admiral Kwon stared at him. "You have been here for 6 months. You found an alien civilization, and you did not report it?" "They needed time to become strong," Do-hyun said. They needed time to prepare. I could not let the Federation come before they were ready. That is not your decision to make. No, Admiral. But it was the right decision. More Federation officers came out of the shuttle. They looked at the Valorans with shock and fear. Some of them reached for their weapons. Yuna stepped forward. She raised her hand calmly. "Please," she said in perfect Korean. "We mean no harm. We only want to live." Do-hyun helped us when we had no one. He saved our people. Admiral Kwan looked at her. "You speak our language?" Do-hyun taught me. He taught many of us. Yuna gestured to the other Valorans. He fished with us. He cooked with us. He worked beside us. He treated us as neighbors, not as strange creatures. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. She looked at Do-hyun. She looked at Yuna. She looked at Bori, who was sitting on Do-hyun's shoulder, watching everything with curious eyes. "Show me," she said finally. "Show me what you have built." They climbed down into the underground world. The Admiral and her officers followed in silence. When they reached the shore of the underground ocean, Admiral Kwan stopped walking. She stared at the glowing water, the crystal ceiling, the boats on the sea, the city of stone and light. "By the stars," she whispered. "It is beautiful." The Valorans came out to meet them. They were not afraid anymore. Do-hyun had taught them that not all strangers were enemies. Some strangers could become friends. An old Valoran named Taiho came forward. He was one of the elders, a wise leader who had been awake for 3 months now. He bowed to Admiral Kwan. "Welcome to our home," he said in slow but clear Korean. "We are grateful you have come." Admiral Kwan bowed back. It was a small bow, but it meant something. That night, there was a feast. The Valorans served food from the underground ocean. The Federation officers ate carefully at first, then with more appetite. Bori swam around the tables, stealing bits of fish when no one was looking. Do-hyun sat with Yuna and Admiral Kwan. "You broke many rules." The Admiral said to Do-hyun, "I know. You lied to your commanders. I know. You should be punished." Do-hyun said nothing. He was ready to accept whatever came. But then Yuna spoke. "Admiral, may I tell you something about humans?" The Admiral looked at her. "Go ahead." "When Do-hyun found us, he could have ignored us. He could have let us die. He could have taken our technology for himself." Yuna's silver eyes were bright. "Instead, he fished with us. He taught us. He protected us. He gave us time to become strong." She looked around the room at the Valorans and humans eating together. "This is what humans do," she said. "They find death and make life. They find silence and make community. They find nothing and create something." She turned back to the Admiral. "We were forgotten by the universe. A human remembered us." Admiral Kwan was quiet for a very long time. Finally, she spoke. "Cadet Park, you are no longer a cadet. I am promoting you to lieutenant." Do-hyun's eyes went wide. "Admiral, this planet will be given protected status. The Valorans will govern themselves. But they will need a liaison, a bridge between our peoples." She looked at him with new respect in her eyes. "I am assigning you to this position. If you want it." Do-hyun looked at Yuna. She was smiling. He looked at Bori, who had fallen asleep on a rock nearby. He looked at the underground ocean, the city, the people who had become his family. "I want it," he said. "I want to stay." Many years passed after that night. The underground settlement became a famous place. Humans came to visit, to trade, to learn. Valorans traveled to other worlds, sharing their knowledge and culture. The planet that was once called Dead became known throughout the galaxy as a symbol of hope. And Do-hyun stayed. He grew older. His hair became gray, but he still fished on the underground ocean every morning. Bori was old too now, his scales less bright than before. But he still swam beside his human, as he always had. One evening, Yuna found Do-hyun sitting on his favorite rock by the water. Children of both species were playing nearby, their laughter mixing together. Yuna sat beside him. She was older too, her crystals now white instead of blue. "You were sent here to learn humility," she said. Do-hyun cast his fishing line into the water. He thought about the young man he had been, angry, rebellious, alone. He smiled. "I learned something better," he said. "I learned that no world is truly dead. It is just waiting for someone stubborn enough to find the life in it." Yuna laughed softly. She leaned against him, and they watched the lights dance on the water. Somewhere in the darkness, a fish took the bait. Do-hyun pulled up his line. Life went on, and it was good.